Hello everyone. Today's session is going to be about starting your own business. The reason I wanted to share this with you is that at Hostaway, we work with thousands of entrepreneurs who run vacation rental property management or short-term rental property management businesses. In addition to that, we have a partner network of over 130 fellow entrepreneurs, and I personally know each one of them. Some of them are quite big, such as Airbnb, but others are much smaller. For example, they are just starting out. One of my hobbies is to mentor startups, and you need a lot of help to get started. So I wanted to share a couple of pieces of advice. I'm going to walk through a couple of the main problems, mostly related to the beginning of the business, when you just have an idea and you want to make it big, but you don't really know what the first step is. So the first one I want to talk about is the business model, because oftentimes when people have an idea about a business, they say, I'm going to be the new Facebook of Amazon, or they have a high-flying idea in general. And no matter how great that idea is, it eventually has to convert into money, because a business needs money to run. Now, how you monetize that, that's called the business model. Many businesses have a super simple business model where you buy and you sell something, like a store. They buy in bulk, they buy a piece of bread for $1 and they sell it for $2. It's a very simple transactional business model. But a lot of entrepreneurs, they say they want to make it bigger. They don't want something simple. And often when I ask them about the business model, it turns out that on one hand, they're software as a service. On the other hand, they're consulting, that they're also a social media platform, and at the same time, referral service. And that simply won't work. Many companies, once they grow big on one business model, they can add on a separate business model. But I've never seen a company succeed if they start with several business models. The reason it's important for you to know what business model you're going to be is that there's actually unlimited amount of data available on how to make that business model successful. For example, if your idea is to have a two-sided marketplace, let's say you want to gather a nice inventory of vacation rental properties and you want to rent them out to people, that's a two-sided marketplace. Now, in order to start that business, you should do every piece of research you can about two-sided marketplaces. You should not be taking advice from founders of Amazon or founders of Google or founders of any other business. The only thing you should do is focus on that business model. If you're starting software as a service, like we at Hostaway are, that's all you have to do. Study software as a service. What are the things that happens there? Because here's the kicker. No matter how unique your business is, the business model is not going to be unique. Most founders think it's unique, but it's actually not. No, there's thousands of other companies and other industries that have done the same thing. And you don't have to make those mistakes. Just read up on that, read what they did. But in order to do that and get the right advice, you need to design your business model. This is where people usually get confused. They had a great idea, great vision, and suddenly I break it down for them and say, sorry, you need to decide on your business model. That's not an easy task, but there's one very simple trick that can help you do that. 3 words: talk to people. You got to find a problem that you need to solve. Many companies, it's easy to think that, they solve multiple problems. I mean, Google solves a lot of problems, and same for Facebook and Amazon. The fact is that they didn't start by solving multiple problems. They all started, and every business should start by solving one problem. But what I see founders do instead is they focus on the solution. They say things like, I have this great idea for how we can achieve this. That's not going to build a business. Having a great idea for how to provide a solution for something is not going to build a business. You need to focus on the problem. Sometimes your solution can solve multiple problems, and that's completely fine. But in order to actually get your solution to take off, you need to focus on the problem. A lot of times I get founders who ask me, well, how can I find out about these problems? Once again, talk to people. No matter what industry you're in, you need a spreadsheet of people. You need real people, and you need to remember their names. You need to talk to them about their lives, about their past life, about their future life, and about their problems of today. Speak to the people who clean the vacation rentals. You also need to speak to the people who work at property management companies. But you may also have to speak to the owners of the property management companies, or perhaps you need to speak to the owners of the properties themselves. When I wanted to speak to Airbnb hosts when we were starting Hostaway, I went to a t-shirt printing shop. And I printed out a t-shirt that said free beer for Airbnb hosts. And I went out on the street and I thought, if this market is so big that I think it is, I'm going to be able to stand at a street corner and someone will come up to me and say, hey, I'm an Airbnb host. I want a free beer. And guess what? It took me 15 minutes. Sometimes I had to ask some people, sorry, are you an Airbnb host? Sorry, are you an Airbnb host? But it turns out, yes, it really was that simple. Now, of course, there's many other ways to get to know people, but start with someone that you know. If you want to enter an industry, it's so much easier. Rather than talking to random strangers on the street like I did, see if you can find anyone. Ask every single one of your friends if they know someone who is in that business, and ask if you could talk to them and ask a few questions. Now, when you do ask those questions, I know you have your great idea or solution in mind, but please do not present it to them. There's many other people you need to present your idea for example, your mentor and potential investors, employees. But when you talk to these people, you have one objective in mind. You want to get a spreadsheet with at least 25 line items, 100 if you can, and then different columns. The first column should be the first name of that person. You're going to ask these people very similar questions. Who are you? Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Why are you in this business? And what are the challenges that you're facing? What are your goals? What's preventing you from reaching those goals? And then write that down. Because during the first couple of years when you start building a business, those answers are going to be incredibly valuable. Because what you'll find very soon is that out of 25 answers, 24 say one thing, there's one person who says something different. And you're going to face problems in your business when you need to go back to that one person and ask, hey, how come you are different from all the other 24 people here? Because right now we're facing this problem in our business. By talking to those people, you'll get to actually define the problem much better than you ever can by, let's say, going to a business school. Because those people, they have real world problems. And if you want to build a business, your solution, even if you have a solution in mind, it needs to actually solve that problem. Now, the third thing that I see people struggle with is they try to build a mountain. They want to make a massive business that's going to revolutionize the world or change an industry, change something completely. And that's all fantastic. That's great. However, there is a challenge with that mountain because you're new to this. Whatever you're doing, you may know the industry, but if you're starting a new company, it's going to be new for you. The mountain that you're building is going to get bigger and bigger. And when it's time to start climbing that mountain, you're going to run out of food, drink, and oxygen. That's right. You built your own mountain. You only wanted to climb it. You're going to die on it. And this is almost every single company at the idea stage has this problem, and they don't recognize it. They think, oh, well, we'll just build a mountain. It's going to be great. It's going to be big. It's going to be beautiful. What you need to do instead is break that down. Get a very small part of it. Don't do the whole thing at once. Instead, get a boulder and see, can you climb that? And the nice thing with a small boulder compared to the mountain, if it turns out you can't climb it, you can just build another one because it takes no time. If you spend 5 years of your life building a mountain only to find out that it's too big to climb, you just lost 5 years and you don't have a business. In order to actually progress from that stage where you have defined the problem and the solution, and you already know some people who have this problem. So when you have the solution ready, you can start selling it to them. You need to figure out at some point, how are you going to make money? And quite often, based on these conversations, you might be able to combine this. And that's the dream case scenarios. Now, there's many successful businesses that never were able to set a milestone of making money. For example, WhatsApp had revenues of 0 and they sold for 3 billion. But if you can set up a small milestone to make some money, it will make things a lot easier. There's 2 things you need. One of them is time, and the other one is money. Now, most of the time, founders actually do have time because they have mentally committed to putting time in here. But one thing I can say, though, is that if your plan is to run it as a side business, you plan to keep your day job and then build it on the side, unless it's a very small scale operation, it's very unlikely that you will be able to build it big enough. You might be able to do it for 6 months until you quit your day job, but after that, you're going to be on your own. And you actually have to be on your own. Now, there's 5 ways to get money for your business. When you start out a business, your main focus should be on getting the basic necessities in life. Now, you should focus on getting food, drink, shelter, healthcare. That's pretty much all you need. You need a couple more things. You need an internet connection, you need a mobile phone. You might need to buy some plane tickets. You might need to have a car to move around, but you need money to have those things. And I'm mentioning here food and shelter because once you get off your salary, you're going to notice that life is very expensive and you have to get off your salary. So there's 5 ways to have money for this. The first one is savings. You can just save up 1 year of living expenses, and it gives you something that's called a runway. That means that you have 1 year when you can afford food, drink, shelter, and an internet connection, electricity, heating, whatever you need to survive. That gives you a great amount of pressure because you know you have exactly 1 year to make it or break it. Another way to fund your business is to actually use a business to get there. For example, if you're dealing with e-commerce space, it might be a good idea for you to start selling stuff on Amazon. You might be able to, on one hand, learn about the industry you're entering, but on the other hand, you can make enough money. If you're starting a software for the vacation rental space, it might be a good idea for you to start managing properties for others and renting them out, because that money might actually extend your runway. Even if it doesn't make you any big money, it might extend the time that you get. Now, the third way of getting the money is to have a side hustle. And this is something that unfortunately I mostly see with failed entrepreneurs. You need to commit fully to your business. If your plan for building a business is to do it on the side of something else or make money on the side that's not related to that, then it's going to cost very heavily in the future. Now, there's 2 other magical ways of making money. And those are actually the ones I would recommend. One of them is revenues. If you can create a product that people will pay for, maybe the amount of money that they pay can start by paying you a salary, maybe even enough money to hire other people. And if you can combine that with your own savings, you might actually have 3 years' time rather than 1 year time. That's an amazing model. Usually it doesn't work, especially when it comes to capital heavy businesses. If you're setting up a factory, it's going to take you 5 years to build that. If you're starting a software, If it's so easy you can build it in one day, probably nobody's going to pay for it. You might have to spend 1 or 2 years just building software. And what you'll most likely find after it's ready is that nobody's willing to pay for it anyway. You'd spend another few years. Which leaves us with the fifth option. Investments. You can get an investor. They give you money so that you can invest that money. And if you refuse to invest it, they're going to force you to invest it. You need to spend that money. And let's say that you're starting from scratch and you manage to raise 1 million. There's going to be a timeline. They'll tell you have to spend this money in 12 months because otherwise you won't get it in the first place. Suddenly you find yourself in exactly the same spot that you would have if you used your own savings. You have 12 months runway. The best one is absolutely revenues. But if you can't build that complex product that makes money, maybe there's a separate product that you can build that's much easier and simpler to build. And maybe you can complement it with extra services that you do manually in order to learn the business that you're getting into while at the same time generating revenues. For example, I have a friend that started a software for lawyers, and it's very successful now, but they funded their business by doing, you guessed it, legal services. For clients who wanted the software, they actually did all the work manually before the software was ready. So those are the things I have to advise you on when setting up your business. Remember to define your business model and study everything you can about it. Don't forget to talk to people, individual people, and set up small goals. And then there's only 2 resources you need, and there's lots of different ways you can get them: time and money. If you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me. Just Google for Marcus Hostaway, LinkedIn, and you'll find me. Have a great day and good luck with your venture.